Welcome to tonight's cabinet meeting. Um, please note that this meeting is actually being recorded, but not live streamed. Is that right? Um, when speaking, please move your microphone into position and speak directly into to improve the sound quality. When you're finished speaking, please turn the microphone off. Fire drill. I better go through the fire drill because we've got some visitors. The fire drill is not expected, so if the alarm sounds, please evacuate the building quickly and calmly. Please use the stairs and do not use the lifts. Exit by the doors in which you entered the room. Once out of the building, please gather outside the Lloyds Bank on the opposite side of the road. If you need any assistance in evacuating the building, please make yourself known to a member of staff. Please also make sure your mobile phones are turned off or set to silent. Item 2, we've got apologies, and Councillor Hughes is away today. Item 3, declarations of interest. Is everybody happy with what is on the internet? Yep. Okay. Item 4, is everybody happy with the minutes from the last meeting? Thank you. Item 5, public consultation. Got a few speakers today. Got James Evans, Stuart Elliott, Mark Axon, and County Councillor Keith Condacore. Councillor Keith Condacore will be speaking on 6, 7, 8, 9, 10B, 10C. Item 6 is the Nuneaton Town Football Club. So I'll be moving this today in the absence of Councillor Hughes. So I'd like to move the recommendations that's in the report set out at 2, that the Cabinet note the information contained within the report and Appendix A provided by Nuneaton Town Football Club as part of an initial feasibility study and request for support of a new home ground. Cabinet considers the request from the Nuneaton Town Football Club to the Council in supporting the new home football ground being developed and considers the site at Valeview or an alternative location. So it's not set in stone that it's a site. The Cabinet approve an in-principle decision to support Nuneaton Town Football Club with a 49-year lease for the Valeview site or an alternative location. That reports are brought back to the Cabinet, if approved, on a regular basis to see the next stage, approves, sign off and project develops. This will include seeking delegated authority to negotiate heads of terms, lease agreement, and that funding is in place for the site to be developed by the Nuneaton Town Football Club. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Staff Price, thank you. So now we'll move on to the public speakers. First up is James Evans.
Good evening. Just first of all, a little bit of background. Nuneaton Town Football Club is a community interest company. It's limited by guarantee and operates on a not-for-profit basis. We're a fan-led club with a board consisting of local business partners and elected representatives of the supporters cooperative, of which I am one. Everyone involved is a volunteer. No one involved was a shareholder or director of the former Nuneaton Borough. Our vision as a club is to ensure the long-term sustainability of Nuneaton Town Football Club as an integral part of the local community. We're seeking a 49-year lease in principle on land at Valeview, Stockingford, to develop a community football stadium. Under the rules of a CIC, such a facility would be asset locked, meaning it could never be sold for private gain. If the council agree to our request, It will enable us to enter meaningful discussions with funding bodies, such as the Football Foundation, who will require evidence that a long-term lease has been secured. As a site for a football ground, Valeview does present some challenges, as outlined in the feasibility report that Councillor Watkins referred to, which we commissioned. However, we believe it's worth facing these challenges head on for the benefit such a facility would bring not only to the football club, but to Stockingford, Camp Hill and the wider Nuneaton community. The issues of health and economic inequalities affecting Stockingford and Camp Hill are widely recognised, as is the lack of all-weather football facilities in Nuneaton. We believe that through consultation and cooperation with the council, local community groups and residents, a facility at Valeview can be a force for good in addressing these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Next speaker up is Stuart Elliott.
Good evening. I represent Nuneaton Business Football Community. We have over 40 sponsors, stroke partners from all over Nuneaton and beyond, covering all aspects of business, from building construction to local radio, financial services, undertakers, and even McDonald's. All the sponsors of the Nuneaton Town Football Club are passionate about returning to Nuneaton. From my own point of view, of my own business, we have supported local football for many, many years, including Aviston United, Hinckley AFC, Bedworth United, but my heart is at Nuneaton. And my reasonings for getting involved in is that they're so passionate and respect from all the volunteers and fans alike. I'm so proud to be part of this fan-led club. It's a fantastic future for us if we can go to Valeview, if that can be possible, and bring football back to Nuneaton, in particular Stockingford and Camp Hill, which will help regenerate and enhance the local environment and local community and make Nuneaton a better place for our children, and hopefully encourage economic investment in the areas such as restaurants, pubs, shops and many other industries. If transport links, if such a possible new train station nearby is considered, it would benefit the local area and assist the business community. We are a transparent club. We do monthly treasury reports for anybody to read and anybody to scrutinise. Our development wouldn't affect the children's mugger area and play area of the park. And I thought we needed to make that clear, because that might be one of the objections perhaps from the community. But the original plans, or the plans that we're hoping that you will look into, do not affect that area. Bedworth United have been very supportive to us in many ways. The chairman once said to me that if one child is off the street and into football, it's all been worth it. I thought it was worth mentioning that, because he's mentioned it a few times, and it sticks out in my mind that, you know, this is what it's about. It's about getting everybody engaged in football and other sports, from in Stockingford in particular. I just wanted to bring up something. I went Christmas shopping on Saturday with my wife into Leicester, and because we hadn't got a game on Saturday, so it was a no football Saturday. So because we were playing Sunday, so we did a bit of shopping. We went into a restaurant, and I said to the barman, I said, he says, "What are you doing here today?" I says, "Well, it's a no football Saturday." He says, "Well, who do you support?" And I'm thinking he's going to be thinking Manchester United, Liverpool or something like that. I said, "Well, I'm only a local team." He said, "Well, who is it?" And I said, "Nuneaton Town Football Club." He says, "I know them. The newly reformed football club. You've got that cracking striker called Kyle Jardine." And I thought, how did that? I'm miles away from Nuneaton, and I never expected that. And he knew so much about what's happening in Nuneaton. So it's just really pointing out that, you know, I'm hoping that we're helping put Nuneaton back on the map a little bit more. And of course, as time goes on, Stockingford and the surrounding area. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Next speaker is Mark Axon.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Mark Axon. I'm the chair of the Supporters Cooperative. I'm here to discuss the impact of this decision on the junior club, the supporters and the town. So Nuneaton Borough Junior Boys and Girls are run by a dedicated team of volunteer organisers and coaches. And because we lack a place to call home, they face logistical challenges of arranging space across the borough for their 19 boys and 10 girls teams with 350 children aged 5 to 15 to play football. This includes Borough Ballers and Wildcats initiatives who provide opportunities for all children to try football in a secure and safe environment. Approving a lease in principle, by approving a lease in principle will help the club in our efforts to provide a home within the town for the football club. This can be a base for us for the juniors to grow, thrive, and eventually hopefully become first team players. Additionally, the Nuneaton Borough Ladies unfortunately had to fold in 2024. Approving the lease in principle would enable the club to develop a women's side and pathway for girls playing for the club. Our town has strong connections to women's football in England, with the borough's former ground, Manor Park, hosting the first ever official England women's international fixture in 1973, beating Scotland 9-0. The council helping with the lease would help women's football in Nuneaton achieve a comparable victory. Supporters of the Nuneaton town are central to its running and governance. These members and the wider fan base are represented at board level at the football club. Supporters also dedicate their spare time to run the football club, both on match day and throughout the week. As the chair of the supporters cooperative, I'm in a privileged position to see the hard work of our dedicated volunteers. And for me, this is a prime example of the Nuneaton residents doing good for their community and their town. Finally, football clubs are key aspects of a community's identity. This club is synonymous with Nuneaton as much as the other town institutions such as Mount Judd, the Dandelion Roundabout, George Eliot, the Nuns, St Nicholas Church, Frank Parker's, to name a few. They are part of what makes us us, and the borough is also part of what makes Nuneaton Nuneaton. Thank you for considering our request.
Thank you, Mark. So, sorry, I should have asked. Has anybody got any points of clarification on any of the speakers? No. Okay, thank you. Next up is County Councillor Keith Conacle.
Thank you, Chair. Congratulations, of course, to the team. They've done really well at raising up the ranks, and I follow their scores at least on Twitter every week to see how they're doing. We have lots of tensions when football is played. We have them in Wellington, where it's really great to see people playing football, but a very large amount of traffic moving into an area does actually cause tensions with the local residents. So I really want this to be a success, and I think one of the things we need to focus on, if it does go in that location, is getting people to the ground without there just being a mass of cars just going onto a very small parking area. So I really ask we really look at the transport impact. It'd be really great to get Stockingford Station open. That's a very short walk to there. And then obviously you've got potential to walk and cycle in from quite a wide area. And then we've got the horrendous stagecoach bus services that we really need to look at in terms of a match day offer. But I say I'm very supportive in principle. The thing will come down to getting the details right. And the other thing to mention, obviously, is building on such a large area open space. It's what we do in terms of drainage, vegetation, screening, etc. So I would really be interested in trying to look at the environmental aspects and see how we can get it as blended in as possible. And a lot of it is like where the floodlights are and how you've got 6 options, which one works best to sort of suit it in the environment. But in principle, I'm very, very keen on getting more sports facilities, particularly in the west of Nuneaton, because a lot of it seems to be in that Nuneaton down Wenbrook into Bedworth. There's a corridor where we've got lots of pingles and sports facilities, but we don't have very much out on the west. So it would rebalance. And I'm a bit guarded when the leader of the council says or somewhere else, because you definitely want to put it in the right place and not upset me. Thank you.
Anybody got any points of clarification? Would I like to upset you, Councillor Conacle? And I'm not quite sure, but I think there was some support in there. So that was, I think, was good there. But the reason that I've said or is because that is what's in the report. It's or. Valeview is the preferred option, or if that is not the place to go, then there will be something else. So that is just to clarify that, Councillor Concord. Any non-cabinet, Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Chair. I will be careful in what I say because I do sit on the planning committee, and several of the questions I have are probably better suited to planning, but there are some general policy issues that I think need exploring and some reassurance, because this is obviously a council asset at the end of the day. I am pleased to see that there is a more business-like approach from the Nuneaton Town Football Club on this. I know when I've had previous discussions when I was leader, chair, and there were different people involved, some the same but some different. It wasn't reassuring to have, I think it was your predecessors on this, present me with a picture of the Gala Fields with a Premier League football stadium just superimposed on top. That wasn't very reassuring, but what you have presented certainly is far more businesslike and what the council needs to see. I'm also pleased to hear from both yourself, Chair, and from the football club that it is only a lease and no transfer of land, because to be honest, Chair, we don't have a good track record with land and the old football club. We all know what happened with the covenant. It was released. Money was, we still don't know, I think, where the money went. A housing estate went up, but it was the football club which suffered at the end of the day. And I don't think any one of us wants to go back to that situation, but it was ultimately a council asset which was used to benefit others, and we need to make sure that is protected. That would be an absolute red line for me, Chair, if I'm being honest, if that was to be looked at. What I would also want to see, and these are questions for further on down the line, Chair, but I think it's important to put them out front, is we can't guarantee that it will always be yourselves in charge of this over the 49 years. And obviously, if anything happens to you, the council still has the land, but there will also be the buildings there and what happens to them. And I think we need to have, moving forwards, Chair, some kind of idea what a potential exit strategy might be, because I don't want us to end up holding the baby, as it were, that we have the land and the site and all the buildings and a potential going concern to try and run, because I'm sure you've told them, Chair, there ain't no money in our pot. And it's not fair to ask the rest of the residents to pick that up. So we have to know how that will move forward. It's not me saying no, it's genuine, legitimate questions about how this goes forward. And also, I do have some reservations about, and I understand that you're saying that the mugger will be still available and all that, but it is still at the moment accessible to the public. That may be something you can look at through statements of operation, things like that, about access to the site and potential community use there. But I think the residents would rightly want to know, we are losing potentially this open land. Is there a way for us to still use it and be in partnership with the club? Because at the moment, it is still technically a recreation ground. So those are, it's not a blanket no, it's not an outright opposition, it's questions to want to be reassured that we're getting it right, Chair, because ultimately we are answerable to the residents who own the land at the end of the day as this council. So those are my points, Chair. They're constructive.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Has anyone got points for clarification? Yeah, that's not clarification time. Right, so I'd just like to say that I hope that we've learnt lessons of things that happened in the past. So I should imagine that will definitely be a thing that we won't be selling the ground. I think the first conversation that we had was no money. I told you there was no money when we started, so that was the opening line. And the only thing that, to be fair, is the only thing they've asked for is some ground. So everything else that you mentioned, I think, is in the planning policies that will get dealt with, and also what Councillor Concord mentioned earlier about lighting and things like that. It will all be covered in the planning. So I'm fairly confident that everything will be covered by our planning team and the policies that we've got. So thank you for your questions, Councillor Clett.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, thank you to you for bringing this forward, and particularly to Kevin for all the work he's put into this. I did bring this up at the OSP, and I'm glad it's come forward so quickly. The reason I brought it up there was because I knew there was impending meetings for the football club with various potential funders, and therefore it's of the utmost importance that it came forward quickly for them. And so I'm glad that it has appeared at this cabinet meeting. So thank you for that. I know I don't need to explain to you the historic and cultural importance of football in Nuneaton. Everyone remembers Rotherham, Swansea, Stoke, Bournemouth, to name a few. And so you can see why it's so important to the people of Nuneaton. But the one thing I really did want to do today was pay tribute to the volunteers that have set up the new club. The point of clarification I had on Councillor Wilson was it's a completely new club to the one that met before. That one was bust, that's gone. Basically football had died in Nuneaton. So these people have saved it by coming together, forming a steering committee. I was on that. I declared the interest in the register. And that has enabled football to continue. And thankfully, it has done at Bedworth. And we've seen the success over the last 2 seasons. But we really need that to continue because it always has been so important to the town. They're very transparent. They're open with the books. They've raised a huge amount of money with the Back to Nuneaton Fund. They've helped the Mayor's Civic Appeal this year. They're helping other local charities. It's just really important to the town of Nuneaton, and I'm grateful that this is on the agenda today.
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor. Has anyone got any points of clarification? No. Just to clarify, it was already coming back to this cabinet. It was because you mentioned it at the scrutiny, but thank you. Thank you for mentioning it at the scrutiny anyway. I would also like to thank the team for bringing this forward. I think that we have moved things on fairly well in the past year since we had our first initial meeting. Well, we had our meetings with Kevin. We've got a good working relationship, and there's a few sort of catchphrases we could bring forward, aren't they? Like it's coming home, I suppose. The field of dreams. I won't mention anything else because directors get a little bit nervous when I start mentioning a few things. But it would be good to see football back in the Ford. That was definitely the downfall when they went to Liberty Way. As far as I could see, people couldn't get there, and the Ford is the place. But let's see how the tests and everything go. So, saying that, can we move to the vote, please? That's passed. So thank you for that. If you'd like to leave now, I'd quite understand it because these meetings do get boring. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to go out if you want to go. Okay. Right, item 7, the Pingles decarbonisation project. Again, I'll be putting this forward in the absence of Councillor Hughes. This one's fairly straightforward, really. It's the report and noting the recommendations at 2 in the report. The Cabinet notes of progress, update on the Pingles decarbonisation project. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Hay. Thank you. Councillor Keith Condor.
A long time ago, I did a degree in electronic engineering. And it's really interesting to see the main problem you've encountered is harmonics coming out the power supply of your swimming pool. And I'm a bit shocked that you aren't asking why. You're fitting this massively expensive filter on the outside of the factory network. And what is it at the swimming pool? Is it the motors, the pumps or whatever that is actually generating lots of harmonics on the network, and actually should we look at changing that equipment rather than actually putting a filter? Because quite often if you've got something that's malfunctioning, fitting a filter to actually hide the problem isn't always the best. So I'm a bit disappointed we don't have any details about what's going on with the harmonics. So it tends to be large motors and things that aren't properly controlled. And then it comes back to the other point we've been talking about for a while, is retrofitting is always harder than actually building solar in at the same time as you build something. So why aren't we trying desperately to get the same stuff in at Bedworth? We're building a new leisure centre. If it costs £1 million to get solar and some of the other things in, why aren't we doing it now while the scaffolding's up and we can get all the electrical stuff working together? So I leave it at that 2 points. But it's a good idea, but say it does raise a few questions.
Thank you, Mr. Conkle. Has anybody got any points of clarification? No? Any non-cabinet members? No. Thank you. So that's been moved and seconded. Can we move to the vote? Okay, thank you. Item 8, local government reform. This will be over to Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chair. I hope this isn't too boring, so I think this is quite a moment, certainly for me and I know other members. I was delighted at the extraordinary council meeting that there was unanimous approval to the proposals for a north and south to unitary authorities. And I think from my personal point of view, that will bring decision making back to a more local level. So I'm pleased that went through unanimously at the council. The purpose of this report is to carry those functions forward so that the reports can actually be submitted and, if necessary, looked at again with a delegated authority to the leader, the chief executive and the leader of the opposition parties should any further amendments be required. But the timescales are very tight and we have to get the submission in. Just before I move the recommendations, can I thank, there's a lot of people been involved with this, but can I thank Tom particularly, because he's been to an enormous number of meetings on this, working with the other chief executives and the leaders to get a situation whereby nearly all the district councils, Rugby, are still a little bit sitting on the fence, are in total accord with this. So thank you for that. So on that basis, in order to move the recommendations of the, of the council forward, excuse me, I am therefore formally moving the recommendations in section 2 of the report. There are quite a few of them there, but they are putting all this into effect. So I formally move those, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and I'm happy to second that. So go to the speakers, which is County Councillor Keith Conkle.
Thank you very much for letting me speak. We have had some issues last week when the leader of Warwickshire County Council did not let me speak. But he did misrepresent what went on in this chamber the weeks before. This chamber unanimously voted that 2 is best. And clearly most of the public believe 2 unitaries is better than 1. There's not an argument about not going to unitary. And the issues are which is the most financially viable or whether either is an option. And when you look at the 2 reports, you see they're written from a different standpoint. The County Council's report is very economically based, whereas the Borough is, the Deloitte one, which is shared amongst the boroughs, was more talking about how we actually get the boroughs working and a viable package. And that is not quite viable because of the way funding is distributed. If you look at the modelling, and I had a meeting with the Director of Finance or County Council, the big issue is how funding gets split between rich areas and poor areas. This fair funding formula doesn't do that well enough to have 2 unitaries. But 2 unitaries is what we need. We can't have a giant council that is totally distant from us here. And when you look at the greater cuts they're proposing, that means less and less localised services, less and less swimming pools maybe one day, less museums, less localized stuff. So I think we need to passionately fight for 2, and that involves changing the rules. Under the rules, 1 unitary is the only financially viable option. You can't argue with that. What you have to do is change the rules, and that's where yourself as leader and the other leaders need to talk to the MPs to ensure that a north-south split ensures that the north has got enough funding. When you looked at the modelling and the modelling of the county with 2 option, both councils cost in total the same as 1 virtually. The big issue was how the wealth was distributed. We desperately need improvements in North Warwickshire. You look at the A5 corridor, we could have jobs in Rugby, Nuneaton, Aviston, Coleshill, along this corridor connected very quickly with trains. It takes 15 minutes to get to Rugby, 15 minutes to get to Coleshill Parkway. We could be a really successful area along the A5 corridor. And the north and the south could both be successful. Us splitting from the south gives the south more bandwidth to do what it does. The big thing also was it's £3 million for a management. It's a £600 million, £700 million business, and the management costs £3 million. Having 2 lots of management doesn't actually waste money. If you've got £3 million spending on making the north successful and £3 million on the south, you're doubling your management bandwidth and then not splitting, trying to do 2 different things. As I said would have said at the meeting, we effectively need a Monica-like character in the south doing south things, but we need a Tom-like character, or whatever you call the chief executive for the north, trying to solve our problems and trying to solve our inequalities. Sorry for overrunning, but I wasn't allowed to speak at county. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keith Condecourt. That's why you wasn't allowed to speak, maybe. But we will always let you speak here, Keith. Any points of clarification? No? Any non-cabinet? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. I have to say that in 15 years on this authority, almost 16, I think the other week was actually showing Nuneaton and Bedworth at its best, this council. We've always had our disagreements, Chair, and we will continue to have our disagreements. And I think this is possibly one of the few areas where we actually agree wholeheartedly on. And I knew I'd done something right when even Councillor Price came up to me after the meeting and tapped me on the arm and said I'd made a good speech. So I thought I must have done something right, Chair, to be able to reach across the aisle. But I think that goes to show how passionate everyone in this chamber is about Nuneaton and Bedworth and its future. I am disappointed that the leader of the county council hasn't taken up the gauntlet that I laid down to him in my speech. I said to him, if you can show me what the value added is of Warwickshire County Council assuming all of our powers to actually make meaningful change here in Nuneaton and Bedworth, where we have 17 of the 22 most deprived areas in the county, I'm willing to listen. And I'm sure every member would be willing to listen if we could find what the value added is and what would be done better if Warwickshire County Council had all those powers. But to date, my email inbox has been empty. I'm sure everyone else's inbox has been empty on that front too. And I wouldn't discount it out of hand if I actually could see how we would improve educational attainment, life expectancy increasing in the north of the county, how we would see job opportunities increasing, average earnings increasing in the north of the county. But so far, every model that I have seen from the county has been silent on that. And this is where I will slightly disagree with Councillor Condecourt. I think we get to the same answer in a way, but we all know that models about financial viability also depend on the variables you input to the model will then determine what you get at the end of that model. And the county, as I said, and we did the same, as I said at our meeting, he who pays the piper calls the tune. And I'm sure that county council chief executive and officers have paid the dues, and they have called the tune, as is their wont. So we do have to be careful of that. I do hope that government will listen to us. I hope they will make the right call, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether we're still here or not. I'm sure plenty of us would quite like to have a night off from not having the stress of being a councillor, but we're passionate about our areas, and it's about what's right for our residents. And I am thankful to yourself, Chair, for working in a cooperative way over this and getting in at the last minute the recommendation about not having a continuing authority from Warwickshire County Council. That was a curveball thrown to us at the last minute. And as I said on the night, and I think it bears repeating, it looks like a hostile takeover of everyone else. And as I said, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck, Chair. And that has done nothing to instill confidence and cross-party working on this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any points of clarification? No. Any more speakers? No. Yeah, I would like to thank you as well for the way that we've all worked together on this. I'll say again, and I'll carry on saying, that I wish this wasn't coming, but it is, or is it? Because we've seen it coming before, and then all of a sudden it's veered off and gone somewhere else. Let's hope this happens. Let's hope this happens again. But I have said that to Tom since day one, and let's see what happens. So, right, we've had the forward move seconded. Can we have a to the vote, please? Thank you. Okay. Number 9, Bedworth Regeneration Investment Plan. Councillor King.
The purpose of the report is to provide the Cabinet with an update on the progress of Bedworth Pride in Place Fund. I recommend that they move the recommendations in 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3.
Thank you. Does that get seconded? Councillor Benson. Thank you. Councillor Keith Conco.
We've done something very similar to this with the Nuneaton Town Steel Board that's become the Nuneaton Pathfinder Board. And it's been an almost total disaster. All the things were put up as brilliant projects, EV charging, George Eliot Centre, museum extension. We had lots of grand plans and almost everything failed, probably apart from Saints in that list. And so I really have concerns about some of these boards where there's very little scrutiny and very many things decided without those critical friends. I think it's great having ambition, but you need to actually sometimes have them challenged early with some realism. And a Bedworth board, I think, could go badly wrong if there's not someone saying, but can we afford this, or is it? Yeah. And if it's a very small group of people, you quite often find the attendance is quite poor because people are doing these boards as a sideline to the other work. And I mean, the Nuneaton board, I went to a meeting and the meeting had been cancelled 2 weeks earlier, but no one had changed the website. The Nuneaton Town Deal Board has been an absolute disaster, and I don't want the same repeated with Bedworth. So we need transparency, a good board with lots of challenge, etc.
That's not what this is about tonight. This is about moving forward with this.
It's a town deal for Bedworth, so
But
effectively.
it's got nothing to do with Nuneaton.
No, but we made a total pig's ear than Nuneaton one.
Thank you. Right, is there any points of clarification on that? No. Any non-member? Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. I do, of course, welcome the reaffirmation of this £20 million coming for Bedworth. And I do welcome the fact that they are establishing their own board in order to identify where that money should be allocated going forward. The only thing I've got concerns around at this point, Chair, is in relation to the fact that it hasn't yet been to a Business and Regeneration Overview and Scrutiny Panel. And I would like to see some confirmation that from this Cabinet that it will come to an Overview and Regeneration Scrutiny Panel to be considered at the appropriate time as we move forward, Chair.
Okay, yeah, I didn't think so. We just need to get past this stage at the minute. So as soon as we get past this stage, because we're the accountable body, and then things will be coming back. So them points will get covered. So that gives you a bit of reassurance anyway. different things at different times. Yeah, I should. Okay, I have Councillor Wilson. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I raise it because it is actually in the papers that there is a 10-year plan with proposed spending each year. So there must be a plan about what that money is being spent on. So that's why I think it is important in due course for it to go to the overview and scrutiny panel, because obviously we are the accountable body. And as we did find out with Nuneaton, and it is relevant to this part, Chair, that where there ended up being a shortfall from what the town deal board looked at, we then have to try and make up that shortfall. So we want to make sure that we don't end up repeating the same issue. I'm not a big fan of these boards because actually, and I've said this within my own party, we are the elected councillors. We are the ones who put ourselves up. We should be the ones who make the decisions, because the boards are not elected. They do not have to stand up to public scrutiny like we do. You either trust us as councillors on behalf of our communities or you don't at the end of the day. What I would ask is that details of the board members are shared with members and publicised, because one of my bugbears, and Tom Shardlow knows this because I've had many a conversation with him about this, I really disagree with people's projects being in the platform within the prospectus if they are sitting on the board. It doesn't look right. They may declare an interest, they may leave the room, but we all know people have backroom connections to go and talk to people. I faced that as leader with Nuneaton, and I think we need to learn from the mistakes of the past to make sure Bedworth doesn't have that issue. So if we can try and avoid having anyone who would have a direct financial benefit to their business or whatever sitting on that board, I think that is important for public and political confidence in the decisions and recommendations that come out, because I am still annoyed that there are people who are benefiting from the Nuneaton Towns Fund on that board, because it doesn't smell right. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Wilson. I'm also not a fan of boards, and I'm getting a bit worried actually because we're agreeing on a few things tonight. But what I will let Matt come in on just to clarify a couple of things.
Thank you, Chair. And just to give Cabinet and other members a bit more assurance and confidence. So, as has been touched on, the Council is the accountable body. Therefore, the governance that applies to us will have to apply to the board. That will include stuff such as transparently publishing the format of the board, the governance arrangements of it, who's on that board, conflicts of interest. All of that will be on there as if it is effectively a council committee, so to speak. And I think just to add on the other point around the financial point, as the accountable body, and as it says at recommendation 2.3, the Section 151 has to sign everything off, and therefore that will be built into the capital and general fund budget monitoring reports that will come through to Cabinet, and that will then obviously be made available to all members as well. So hopefully, Chair, that just helps put a bit more context around those points. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Is that okay? I know, Councillor Condacor, I'm coming to you now. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, a little bit of it's just been covered and things, but I looked on the website and there's not a lot of information. There are the minutes from this, which I assume is the same board, this Transforming Bedworth. I forget what it's actually called on the thing. But on there, it said, you know, who'd attended, who'd given apologies and what have you and things. But who attended, were they attending as members of the board or others can, you know, attend? So there was no list of who actually is on the board, how you would contact them. I mean, one or two, I mean, I knew some of the names and things, and there are people, you know, who've got local businesses in the town. But as been said, you know, how much conflict that creates, I don't know, but obviously they know what the town needs as well. So there is a balance. But I think there needs to be a lot more transparency and information, because I actually then clicked on the Believe in Bedworth bit, and it just took me to the minutes and on there. Then there was a link to a Facebook page. Well, a lot of people don't do social media, and it shouldn't be expected that that's the only way to contact. And on the social media page for Believe in Bedworth, there was a website address. I clicked on that, and it doesn't actually exist yet. It just said, "Oh, we want the," they've obviously bought them a domain name, but I think so. There needs to be a lot more sort of information and clarity, so that mistakes aren't made, and people, if they have got issues, can know who to raise them to straight away and how to raise them.
Thank you, Councillor Concord. I'm sure we'll take them points away. Thank you for bringing them things up. And yeah, I think we do need to have the details of who's the board members and maybe who's associated with what. So if we can ask for the people to put them on, we'll do that. So okay, that's been moved. Seconded. Can we move to the vote? Okay, thank you. Item 10, capital strategy. The Health and Corporate Resources OSP was held on the 23rd of October. So it'd be recommended to Cabinet. I'll just move the recommendations. Is everybody happy with that? Can we have a second for that? Okay, Councillor Hay. County Councillor Concord. You're right. Okay. Anybody else? No. Okay. Thank you. So can we just move to the vote? Thank you. 10B, Sea Cadets, access to open water. This will be put Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chair. The report went to the OSP, and the recommendation, as you'll see there, is to the Cabinet's note that the Environment and Leisure OSP reviewed the report on the Sea Cadets and have requested further information to be brought back to the panel in February 2026. Now, as a Cabinet, we don't think that goes quite far enough at the moment, and so I am going to propose a motion to Cabinet, which I hope will be seconded. It's not that long, but it is trying to push this on a little bit faster and a little bit more clearly without, us deciding to not agree with the OSP. But we do want things to move forward if we can, and it'll still go back to the OSP, and decisions and things will come back here eventually again. But if I can just read it out, the Cabinet note the good work that the Sea Cadets do in the Borough for young people and will work collaboratively with them to explore the potential for open water usage within the Borough. We note the Environmental and Leisure Overview and Scrutiny Panel have reviewed the report on the Sea Cadet request and have requested further information to be brought to the panel in February 2026. We direct the officers to obtain external advice to assist with the review of the request from the Sea Cadets. We delegate authority to the Strategic Director Corporate Resources in consultation with the portfolio holder for resources and central services to identify the budget for external advice to be sought further to the previous direction. And finally, request the proper officer call an extraordinary Environment and Leisure Overview and Scrutiny Panel as soon as practicable following external advice in advance of February 2026. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm happy to second that. And go to the public speakers, which is County Councillor Keith Concord.
Thank you very much. We obviously need to do everything possible to stop the public killing themselves by going in inappropriate places. And some of our quarries are very, very inappropriate for wild swimming, etc. But obviously the people who quite often go in these don't actually read bylaws and council procedures anyway. But I don't want the access to the Sea Cadets to be sacrificed because of the stupid people who go and kill themselves as well. So there is a balance, but we should not ban the use of water in the borough. The water exists. We need to direct people to the safest water, and the safest way to access it is for young people through the Sea Cadets. So I really want us to have a way they can use water safely. They're probably at more with the amount of health and safety the Sea Cadets go through, and it will be harder for them to hurt themselves in the water than it will on the roads driving to Tamworth or somewhere to find alternative facilities. So I really support sensible access to water. I really would love so much as the borough to be cleaned up so that actually the rivers were safe to swim in, etc., in suitable locations. Obviously not near weirs, whatever. But I think the best way to make things safer is not total bans, but to direct people to safe locations with the right safety environment. And I think the Sea Cadets are a marvellous safe environment to actually teach people how to use water safely and also the dangers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goncourt. Any points of clarification? No? Any non-member? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Like Councillor Condacor here, I'm here to urge you to look constructively to work with the Sea Cadets to find a solution to the problem they face. I was fortunate enough to speak with a senior officer of the Sea Cadets in Coventry about this particular problem, and he assures me that the Sea Cadets using a body of open water within the borough, they'll have a safety boat, they'll be wearing safety equipment, they'll be wearing wetsuits, they'll be supervised. These people are professional, they carry insurance. It's not like some kid deciding to jump in the pond. And I get that some people maybe think that they're being influenced by the Sea Cadets using a body of water, that they can do so. But we talk about different things here, that if we give permission to an authorised body that works professionally to train young people in all sorts of life skills, not just about boating, that people could actually be inspired to join the cadets. You know, it's the sort of thing we should be encouraging kids to do the right thing here. And from our own point of view, I'm sure many of us have been to Remembrance Sunday parades over the weekend, Armistice Day parades yesterday, and we saw the cadets, and we take pride in them. So let's see if we as a council can do something to work with them to make this work for everybody, because I was also assured that the future viability of the Sea Cadets in this borough is at risk if we are unable to help them, you know, because the money they're paying to use another body of water outside the borough currently is a massive financial headache to them and puts their future viability at risk. So I think, you know, we need to do something. And it's Sea Cadets in other boroughs use public assets like we own as a council to do their training. So I think we can make an adjustment to our policy for something sensible here and work together with them to get something done. So I would urge you to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Anybody got any points of clarification? No, I'm getting seriously worried because me and Councillor Brown are in agreement now. So I think it is time for me to retire now. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. We may be about to resort to type on this one. I'm not a fan of having recommendations at Cabinet not printed on the agenda paper for people to consider in good time. I think you're entitled to your view, Chair, and obviously you will have had a discussion about this in order to formulate the wording. But I think having something like this before members of the public, there might be other members of the public who would want to comment, or indeed other councillors. We haven't got that in front of us, so I do think it's slightly bad form on that front. It's within your prerogative, but in order to enable us to actually comment properly on what you're saying, I think if I understand your recommendation correctly, it's external advice. I understand that we'll probably have to go to someone like the HSE, but I would, depending on what the HSE comes back with, and it's my understanding that officers are not, their professional advice is no. I think you may also need to seek some form of legal advice, because HSE advice and legal advice may be different. Because I think we also have to remember that it won't, if anything happens in one of these bodies of water, it won't be any one of us 38 elected councillors who will stand in a dock for health and safety failings. if someone dies, we have to be very conscious it will be someone like Tom who will be stood in that dock on behalf of Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council. And I don't think it's fair of elected members to potentially put him in that position if we decide to act contrary to legal and professional advice on that. So we need to be very, very careful about this. We all want to support these good organisations, but we must do it properly. My reservation about this is, yes, the Sea Cadets know what they are doing. They will have public liability insurance and everything else. But it is the message it will send to those who aren't with that group that, oh, it's all right for me to go into this body of water, because they do it anyway, but they will think that permission is implied because they see those there. The only other way around it I can see to prevent that from happening is whatever body of water this council decides to let them have, is that it no longer becomes public access and it is somehow fenced off only for the Sea Cadets. And that has other issues that goes with it. I think that may be a way of squaring the circle in terms of legal and HSE advice and all that. But again, that has an implication for people's public amenity and other facilities within the borough and access and costing, etc. Because it's all very well saying it looks safe, but you don't know what is under that water. It just takes a bad current, and you do get currents in inland bodies of water. It happens. And then if you get sucked down into that current with the temperature of the water, it's not like the tropics where Councillor Brown and I have done a lot of our scuba diving. Believe it or not, I am a qualified master scuba diver. Might not have the body for it, but I'm certainly qualified. Your body will shut down in seconds, if not minutes. And if there is no one around there to look after them and protect them and rescue them, that is the leader of the council having a phone call saying that someone has died on our land. I had it on. It wasn't in water. It was in It was in Riversley Park, and that's not a nice phone call to have from anyone. And I hope sincerely that you have never had one of those phone calls. I have. I want to make sure that if we do this, we do it right, because the consequences are potentially disastrous. So we must make sure that we are not putting any officer, or more importantly, any innocent life out there at risk. I understand what Councillor Condacour says about idiots, etc. They don't care about that. They just see hot weather, open water, let's go play. They don't think about the consequences. It's our job to think about those consequences. That's my reservations and thoughts, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any points of clarification? No. And I can assure you it's not been easy to get here. But one thing that we do want to be seen to do is supporting the Sea Cadets. One of the only authorities that don't support the Sea Cadets, and there was a lot of facts came out at the scrutiny. So we have took a lot of things into consideration, and as is said in what's just been proposed, is we will be taking professional advice. So that's been moved and seconded. Can we move to the vote, please? Okay, thank you. Domestic food waste, Councillor Price.
Yeah, I'd just like to move the recommendation to Cabinet to note the recommendations made in the report submitted to Environment and Leisure OSP.
Thank you, Councillor Price. Does that get a seconder? Councillor King. Okay, public speakers, Councillor Condacour.
As I said when we started the dry recycling, education is absolutely everything when you start launching a new service. People won't understand why they've got this extra caddy unless they're told where it goes to, what it's used for, etc. So we've failed to give enough education before. Hopefully we've got some money now from government, I think, to help launch the scheme. We really need to educate so people put the right stuff in, because this is also going to anaerobic digestion, I believe. So effectively it's cooked up and made a digest, and so if you put the wrong stuff in, you wreck the whole process. Yeah, so it is something that needs to be used right. I hope it's a success. I mean, we don't produce much food waste because we're so green. We compost everything we can, and produce as little waste as you can. But it is a good scheme to have if it works well. And one of the things that happened many years ago when I think the first place to try it was Preston. and actually people started buying less food. They did a survey of how much food was in people's waste bins, and then they launched a food waste collection, and they only collected about half of what they were expecting. Because when people actually scooped out all the potatoes and rice and pasta and pork chops or whatever and put it in a food caddy to chuck away, it actually changed behaviour, which is a really good thing, because the embedded value in that food is dreadful. Just chuck it away. So I hope it's a success. Say educate, educate, and then educate.
Thank you, Councillor Condacourt. Has anybody got points of clarification? No.
Yeah.
None. Oh, points of clarification.
Yeah.
Go on then.
Yes, I just want to clarify what he's banging on about education. So we are obviously the departments are running a program. They're working on posters to go on the bins, and they have recruited somebody to do the education on that. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Price. Any non-member? No. Oh, can't.
It's just really a little bit of clarification, because I couldn't see anywhere in the report. I read saw somewhere that it said, 35% of people will actually use the bin, but is it one going to every household? Because we've already still got ours from last time, and we don't. It's put to a different use, things. But so there'll be a lot of people that don't actually need it if they compost. So I just feel that there's going to be a lot of wasted money providing to people. But I don't know how you could manage to sort of have people opt out from it and things. So there are a lot of questions that I sort of didn't really see in the report. I presume it's all going to be done in-house. Again, there were talk about sort of buying all these vehicles and what have you and things, but it didn't specific. I presume it is in-house. Yeah. So it's just sort of a little bit more. I hesitate to put meat on the bones because I don't eat meat, but you know what I mean.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Condacourt. Have you got anything to say, Councillor Price?
I think the intention is with the initial actions is that everybody will be given them, but the thing is, if you've got an old bin or something, when they're doing the collections, that's not going to be recognised as being the food waste, is it? So I'm not quite sure how that would work. I don't know if Kevin could come in and clarify anything further.
Kevin, do you want to?
I can just summarise it. So the size of the caddy needs to be certain sizes, because there'll be manual handling issues, there will be a collection route, and it will be worked out on the size of a caddy. So everybody will be issued with, most households, in terms of flats, that will be different, but households will be issued with a container and a caddy, which will then be a weekly collection. And that will be a different vehicle where it will only be food waste that can be collected, because as Councillor Condacourt quite rightly said, that will go to a different plant in Hams Hall where it will be recycled. And so it only has to be food waste. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kevin. I think it's it's important to point out to the residents, this is not something that the council's wanted to bring in. This has been forced upon us. So that's why we're having to do this. I think when you take the 3 or 4 miles to the gallon that the actual collection wagons will be doing, the impact on the climate won't be very good, will it? So I'm not really a fan of it, to be honest with you, but it's something we've got to do. So that's been moved and seconded. Can we go to the vote? Thank you. Okay. Any other business? We haven't got any. So that's closing the meeting. Thank you very much.